ora, wamai and welcome viewers. I am your host Javid Khan and this is Darpan the Mirror, capturing New Zealand's own reflections in its very own mirror. Now, today's show is a fantastic one, so without further ado, let's get right into it. And today's show centres around the criticism about Auckland City Council's new logo. Now, points of criticism have been drawn from all sides due to the fact that very few councillors were privy to its inception. Now, interesting point to note as well is that the new logo bears great resemblance to Triangle Television's very own logo. Now, Auckland City Council is New Zealand's largest self-governing body after central government. Therefore, there are lots of things that need to be done and put into place to make sure everything is running efficiently. So, here's the question. Should the Auckland City Council be put to task over $25,000, which was the spend of the supposed logo, or was it really $1 million? Let's find out today in the new drama that surrounds the Auckland City Council logo.
Auckland is New Zealand's largest city, uniquely set between two harbours, amongst 11 extinct volcanoes and numerous islands in the Hauraki Gulf. It makes for a great place to live. Around 35% of the country's population lives in the region. The council, being the single largest governing entity after the central government, is involved in hundreds of millions of dollars in various projects every year. There are set norms and systems in place to tackle and deliver the projects. Depending on the spend, consultation or no consultation is taken into account. The logo was devised by Council Chief Executive David Rankin and his executive team. Communications and Marketing Group Manager Mark Fenwick maintains that the logo was the culmination of a $25,000 budget. Auckland City Council Chief Executive David Rankin said that since the exercise involved only $25,000 for a new logo, only a handful of the previous senior councillors were privy to it, and that included the then Mayor, Dick Hubbard.
I guess in a nutshell, one of my responsibilities as Chief Executive is to make sure that the public can see what we're doing with their money, and there's a whole lot of different ways we can improve that connection, and one of them obviously is putting a clear logo on the signage that we have on our projects and facilities and events. And so we got some feedback on the old logo, which really told us a couple of things. One is that because it didn't have the word council on it, it was a bit confusing. It just had Auckland City, which is like a place. And the second thing is that people found our old logo pretty hard to read because it was very small. So we had a think about it, relatively low cost redesign to first of all put the word council in there, and secondly to make sure that the Auckland City Council is very easy to read and see. And that's really all there is to it.
Like for that survey, how many people participated in that survey?
I don't recall, but we had it done, by an independent research company using a sort of focus group methodology. One of the things we all know is you'll never get a room full of people to agree on a particular design, but the feedback about the problems with the old one was clear, and I believe the same thing myself. You see our old logo around, it was pretty hard, unless you knew what it actually was. It was hard to know what it was saying.
Now, what sort of cost we are looking at, the actual cost that went into it?
Well, the design and research was the $25,000 that we released, and in addition to that, there's something like about $16,000 for the registration of the trademark, which is lawyers. The way that the logo will be kind of rolled out, if you like, is we've deliberately avoided any kind of big launches or special things. Essentially what we're going to do is when we come to replace some signage or some stationery, we'll use the new logo rather than the old one. And when there's a need for some new signs, then we will use the new logo, not the old one. So it will actually take some years, in fact, for this new logo to be fully rolled out.
He insists that there was no veil of secrecy involved whatsoever. He acknowledges that there are other costs involved with the overall rebranding, but it is nowhere near $1 million.
We have got no idea where the $1 million came from. We don't know why that number is being used in the media. It hasn't come from us. if you read the media stories, you certainly can't see how that $1 million is made up. So it's a mystery to us, and it's not correct.
The 18 flags that we see on Queen Street, what is the purpose of them being there?
Well, that's a good example I was talking about before. Auckland City's always had, for special events, flags, banners. We had it for the America's Cup and all sorts of special events like that. We were planning to buy some new banners for the central business area and held it off for a few months while we sorted out the new logo, and then we've gone ahead and bought them. So that's a good example of where we were going to do something anyway. We put the new logo on instead of the old one, but it's not a cost of the new logo. It's just using the new logo on something we were going to be doing.
Meanwhile, Triangle Television is demanding the Auckland City Council drop its controversial new wavy blue logo for events and entertainment purposes. The broadcaster wants the council to change the colour of its logo, which bears a close resemblance to the blue triangle used by Triangle Television for 10 years. The lawyers on both sides are now involved in discussions to resolve the matter.
Well, I don't know about that, and I don't get excited about what Mr. Blackman might think about it. I just hope that the Auckland City Council, those responsible, will pick up the phone and invite Mr. Blackman to come in and sort it out if there is an issue.
You might have discovered that there is a strong similarity between the two logos. It clashes with Auckland regional television station, Triangle Television's logo. How do you see that?
Well, obviously we thought they were different, but there's another point of view coming from Triangle. Some of my staff have had a meeting with Triangle TV, and there's goodwill on both sides. We need to just see if we can work through to a mutually acceptable solution, and that's what we'll be doing our best to do. We don't want a big fight with Triangle TV. It does a great job as far as we're concerned, and we don't want to get involved in disputes with them if we can avoid it, that's for sure.
Now, with both the entities looking to use the logo for the events and entertainment purposes, I mean, how do you think the intellectual property rights would be distributed?
Well, that's what we've got to work out. I mean, obviously, we're not trying to compete with TV station. We're not a TV station. We don't want to get into the TV business. All we want to do is make sure that when we provide services, or we have council facilities, when we fund events, we obviously want people to see where Auckland City Council is supporting those things with their rates money. That's where we would like our logo with our name, Auckland City Council. We would like to work with Triangle, as I said before, to try and work out a mutually acceptable solution, given the fact we're not competitors, we're not in conflict, anything like that.
Now, with regards to the logo, David, what is your personal opinion? Like every 3-4 years the government changes and suddenly the need for a new logo is spoken about. How do you see it from financial perspective or from any aims achieving perspective?
Well, first of all, as I've said before, this is actually a pretty modest cost for us. When you get the true cost of the logo as distinct from some of the claims that are being made, it's a modest sum of money. We've had our old logo for, 15 years probably, maybe a bit more. It's had tweaks over the years. I would envisage that the new logo will get lots of use out of as well. We're not the sort of organisation that goes trying to fundamentally change our logo all the time, and we have no intention of doing that.
The 60-year-old mayor of Auckland City, John Banks, is the first mayor to make a comeback in 39 years. Incidentally, he is the 39th mayor. Banks said that given the way in which the previous council acted surreptitiously on certain fronts, he promised to end the culture of secrecy and wasteful spending. He said consultation and dealing with serious issues will be his priorities. He lamented the previous council for undertaking such an exercise. He said although he liked the new logo, he does not agree with the way in which it was delivered.
I like the look of the new logo. The public process around delivering it, I don't like. It is a obituary legacy of the last big spending Auckland City Council, and consequently it's been managed quite poorly in terms of public policy. Having said that, the logo looks good. The challenge now is to roll it out on a stage-by-stage basis that is sound and sensible and affordable.
But this logo is already a registered trademarked logo with Triangle Television.
Yeah. Let me make it very clear. I'm not an apologist for my predecessor. I'm not an apologist for everything bad about the last Auckland City Council. I have a mandate from the people for sound, sensible, affordable progress with transparency and accountability. I am in charge now, and I'm taking responsibility now. This whole thing needs to be looked at. It is not my knowledge that it is a breach of the patents. It is my knowledge that Auckland City Council has had the patent of this logo ticked off.
Now, this sort of behavior will not be seen in this council with you at the helm of affairs. That's what the general view of the public seems to be emanating from all quarters.
Well, they're very unhappy because they simply don't understand how the process has been able to creep up on them and jump out of the box with no history. 6 years ago, I was asked to review the logo of the Auckland City Council. 6 years ago, I said, no, there are more important things to come to grips with. There are more important expenditure proposals, like cleaning up the beaches, like graffiti, like streets and footpaths and lightings and parks and swimming pools. So it was never a priority for me. Having said that, I've inherited this problem, and I'm going to make sure that I can limit the damage around the cost.
Now, the communications head over here says that it was only a $25,000 budget within which they had acted on the new logo, but a senior official council source in the previous council is of the view that at least $1 million were definitely spent on it.
Well, the problem with all of that is that these senior sources are anonymous. I don't know about anonymous senior sources. What you see is me fronting up. What you see is me in damage control. What you see is a new mayor of Auckland City who's running a sound and sensible, open and honest policy, trying to make the best out of a bad situation. That's what you see.
David Rankin led a project to dump the sails and volcano of the old logo in favour of a wavy blue triangle. Citizens and Ratepayers Now councillor Tim Miller says that the previous mayor, Dick Hubbard, Deputy Mayor Dr Bruce Hucker, along with former Citizens and Ratepayers Now leader Scott Milne, were privy to the entire episode. The new logo adds the word council to identify Auckland City as an organisation, not a place. The iconic features like rangitoto and yachts sailing on the harbour are missing from the new logo. Many feel that these elements are important in the makeup of Auckland City's flavour.
Well, of course, the situation now is that since the past 12 months, we've actually been broadcasting in Wellington too. So the triangle logo is not just Auckland known, it's known on a far broader basis, and particularly with our move towards Stratos, our nationwide feed and so on, the branding has become very much more positive and very much more broadly aware than perhaps Auckland City actually realises.
We thought we were using an appropriate process given the size of the issue and the amount of budget involved. It's a logo for the City Council organisation. We thought it was probably appropriate for the management team and professional marketing people to work on the design of a logo. You can't have, the whole world designing a logo. We did, however, discuss it with the previous senior leadership of the previous council and showed them the design, and that's what we thought was an appropriate process to follow. And the decision was, of course, made before the election of the new council.
So there was no hush-hush matter involved to it, or nothing sinister about it?
Well, I certainly don't think there's anything remotely sinister about it, no. I mean, obviously lots of decisions that get made that don't involve everybody, and we followed a management process and then cleared it with the leadership group of the previous council. That's what we thought was an appropriate way to deal with it.
Regarding the similarities of the logo, how do you feel Auckland City Council going in for a logo that is strongly resembling your one?
Well, I think that became pretty obvious with the number of calls that we received expressing concern about the similarity from our viewers. Initially, we weren't aware that how close the new logo was, and we're rather surprised that the council designers didn't actually check out the registrations that already existed, and I would have thought that would have been the first thing they would have done before pursuing this expensive exercise.
Intellectual property rights?
Well, yeah, and you know, I think in the first instance, if they knew even that there was a vague possibility that our logo was similar, and they should have known because we've had dealings with the council in the past, then they should have approached us and at least told us that what they're up to.
Now this also, if you look at it from another perspective, does this also suggest to you that in spite of your existence on the airways here in this part of the region, in the Northland, Auckland region, the very city council who is within which you are working does not know the existence of Triangle Television?
I think the council knows full well that we existed, and I can't help but feel that maybe they chose to ignore the fact that we existed, and perhaps that they thought that we would not you know, take any action. Well, the reality is that we've registered the design. It's our property, and they should have at least checked that out. I mean, it's listed in the government records.
Now, what sort of steps you're going to take?
Well, I hope that mediation will and common sense will prevail. Clearly, our logo has been established for over 10 years now, and we're not likely to want to divert very significantly from what we already have.
Whatever it is at the end of the day, whether the new logo stays or goes, the new Mayor of Auckland City Council says that they will move on with the more serious issues that require urgent attention.
I don't know whether there is an issue. It looks slightly like the Triangle Television logo. It's not the same, but that's not for me to debate. I mean, this is the politics of bubble and squeak. I want to clean up the beaches of the raw sewage. I want to get rates and spending under control, and I want to have openness and accountability. That's my mandate.
Next week.
Firstly, it's a police operation. The government does not control police operations. Secondly, it would be highly likely that charges would be laid under our firearms legislation. My understanding is that the reason the police also sought warrants under the Terrorism Suppression Act was that if in the course of uncovering evidence they found suggestions that there had been terrorist like acts in the process of being planned, then they couldn't have laid charges under that act if they had not sought warrants under it. So the jury is out as to whether the police actually will seek to lay charges under the Terrorism Suppression Act or only under the firearms legislation. To lay charges under the Terrorism Suppression Act, they must get the consent of the Solicitor General. He is the government's most senior lawyer, he is not a politician, and he will apply a high test of what is appropriate.
Darpin the Mirror on satellite, cable and terrestrial network.
It centres around the criticism about Auckland City Council's new logo. Now, points of criticism have been drawn from all sides due to the fact that very few councillors were privy to its inception. Now, interesting point to note as well is that the new logo bears great resemblance to Triangle Television's very own logo. Now, Auckland City Council is New Zealand's largest self-governing body after central government. Therefore, there are lots of things that need to be done and put into place to make sure everything is running efficiently. So, here's the question. Should the Auckland City Council be put to task over $25,000, which was the spend of the supposed logo, or was it really $1 million? Let's find out today in the new drama that surrounds the Auckland City Council logo.
Auckland is New Zealand's largest city, uniquely set between two harbours, amongst 11 extinct volcanoes and numerous islands in the Hauraki Gulf. It makes for a great place to live. Around 35% of the country's population lives in the region. The council, being the single largest governing entity after the central government, is involved in hundreds of millions of dollars in various projects every year. There are set norms and systems in place to tackle and deliver the projects. Depending on the spend, consultation or no consultation is taken into account. The logo was devised by Council Chief Executive David Rankin and his executive team. Communications and Marketing Group Manager Mark Fenwick maintains that the logo was the culmination of a $25,000 budget. Auckland City Council Chief Executive David Rankin said that since the exercise involved only $25,000 for a new logo, only a handful of the previous senior councillors were privy to it, and that included the then Mayor, Dick Hubbard.
I guess in a nutshell, one of my responsibilities as Chief Executive is to make sure that the public can see what we're doing with their money, and there's a whole lot of different ways we can improve that connection, and one of them obviously is putting a clear logo on the signage that we have on our projects and facilities and events. And so we got some feedback on the old logo, which really told us a couple.
Kia ora, wamai and welcome viewers. I am your host Javid Khan and this is Darpin the Mirror, capturing New Zealand's own reflections in its very own mirror. Now, today's show is a fantastic one, so without further ado, let's get right into it. And today's